All right. Hello, my name is Landon Pascal, and this is my informative climate change speech for uh, for this class. And I have it laid out as in three for minority, three for consensus, and at the end, I'm just going to tell you what I personally think about climate change as a whole and which side that I agree with more, basically. So the first piece of evidence I have that I agree with the minority view is ClimateGate. So I did my last presentation on ClimateGate for the last project we had to do, and so I feel like I have a little bit more knowledge. And ClimateGate was when emails got leaked about consensus view scientists who basically were saying some pretty shady things, which definitely put a toll on the consensus, in my opinion. Uh, it shined a light that made it seem like they weren't very truthful in what they were doing, and it showed them like in a way of them being very very secrety, like they were like be I don't know. It was just very like not good, in my opinion. I don't know. I'm trying to get the words to say it, but like, it showed them in an awful light, in my opinion. And there was articles made about both sides about the minority view of ClimateGate and how they were like, "Wow, look at these emails! Look at these emails! That's bad." And then the consensus made articles as well saying, "Oh no, this isn't that bad of a look." Sorry. And yeah, it was just a bunch of foul play. It was very shady on the side of the consensus, and it really made me agree more with the minority side because after seeing some of the emails and some of the secrecy and the shadiness that was going on behind the scenes of the consensus side, it really made me think like, wow, they could be doing this on a much bigger scale with almost everything they do if they're doing this in secrecy. So that was this was my main point for the minority. My second piece of evidence was the 97% consensus. This is when they surveyed 3,146 scientists. They asked them two different questions. They asked the same scientists, they asked everybody in this survey the same two questions. And they came to a 97% total agreement for those questions. When in reality, it was actually an 82% agreement, which again aligns with the last point. And they're like lying for no reason, it seems. 82% to me is still a number where if I look at it, I'm like, okay, that's enough to agree with it. I don't see the point here for the consensus to have to elevate their number to 97%, even though they're already at 82, just so they have a better looking number. And it still doesn't make sense to me, and it just shows how they inflate an already high number, and they're willing to lie about it. They're willing to not be completely truthful with the numbers that they have, and it just another big piece of evidence for the minority to show that the consensus really is not telling the full truth. They're withholding information that I feel that shouldn't be withheld. There's not a point for it to be withheld, and this was just another piece of evidence for the minority. My third piece of evidence was the hockey stick graph controversy, which is when Michael Mann in 1998 had made a hockey stick graph based on the average temperature change, and it showed a spike up, back down very little, and then another spike up very recently. But in the 1990s, IPCC had a graph of the medieval warm period, and that was the main high point, and it slowed back down, and we were currently gradually rising. But in the hockey stick graph, that wasn't the case. We were rising now. And it just shows, again, like, how can you have graphs from 10 years ago at the point where Michael Mann posted it, and like, how can you have graphs that are just there, and then all of a sudden they vanish? They're just graphs that are no longer within the, like, in the values of what the IPCC had. They literally like completely went with the hockey stick graph, even though they posted the other graph before. And again, it seems shady to me in how that just works, and it doesn't really make sense to me, which is why this is another evidence for the minority. But I do have evidence for the consensus to show that I do agree with some of the things that they say. So, and for one, is extreme weather is getting worse. So if we go with their saying, if there's an energy increase in the atmosphere, then that would drive weather to have more energy behind it. Which, if that is the case, that is true. If there's more energy going into the atmosphere, then that means tornadoes, hurricanes, and multiple other extreme weather patterns would be more extreme because they have more energy behind them. And they would become more numerous, and if that's the case and more energy is put into that because of global warming, then that could be a serious problem. I do agree with the consensus on that. Second piece of evidence for the consensus is that their predictions on doom. And again, if CO2 is being pumped into the air, this will cause temperatures to rise, oceans to continue to get warmer, which will cause the oceans to rise. And I do believe this in this way, but if you look over the span of thousands and thousands of years, the ocean tends to increase, which is why I do agree with this, because if the oceans do get warmer because of CO2, this will cause them to rise, which will cause multiple problems across the world, and this is why this is a prediction of doom. And so I do agree with the consensus on this point. And the third piece of evidence for the consensus I have is their idea on models. So mainly for this reason is because the amount of funding they have. And I feel like with the amount of funding they have compared to the minority, their model should be top-notch research. And with all the money and the scientists that they have, the models that they should be making should be completely 100% as close to accurate as you can get. They shouldn't fudge the data, as we say, to make it to where it makes them look good. They should be able to make it to where they are telling the truth and showing what is actually right and making it very accurate. They also make models that are largely mathematical, which is something that everybody should be doing, personally, I think. But to summarize, to end this, my point, I stand mostly with the minority in this, because from all I've seen, the consensus is too shady for me to completely believe what they're saying and all their ideas and models and everything along those lines. It shows that they're just too shady. The minority seems more truthful with going through all the evidence that we've gone through. It just, the consensus is way too shady in my opinion. But yeah, this is my video, and I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching.